Hey, what's up, guys? So today is kind of special. I am on with Komba Malukutila. He's MD at MTN Fintech. So let's get to know each other today. It's a very interesting day because obviously we get to chat, to chat on so many other topics. And he's a specialist in a specific field. I'm sure he's not a stranger to a lot of people, but he's someone that you get to, he's someone that you get to love and enjoy. So I'm very happy to have him. It's very rare to have this man in one room. You know what I mean? He's very busy, so I'm very, very excited that he's made his schedule flexible for us to interact with him. So if you're joining for the first time, my name is Mulenga Chanda, and I'll be with Komba Malukutila MTN MD Fintech. So let's get right into it with Komba. So I hope you guys can be, interactive. Please feel free to let us know if you have any questions, and if you can hear me, just let me know as well. So please, can someone in the comment box let me know if they can get me Masa, Esther, great. So can someone just comment saying we can hear you, so that I can accept Komba's request, and then you guys can, interact with us. It's a very, very interactive podcast. It's video, Instagram live. So where's Komba? Okay, there he is. All right, so okay, great. Yo, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. It's good to have you. I was just
Yes.
explaining to everyone. I was just explaining to everyone how difficult it is to get you in a room, because obviously you're so busy. You're always, going somewhere or attending a meeting. So it's very interesting that you're live with us.
Yeah, look, I'm really happy to be here. I've had a long day. I'm in the tourist capital. We had a couple of things that we're doing here. They have the ACCA Business Forum, so serious people, finance people
Yeah,
like you guys.
yeah,
So yeah, but other than that, I'm excited to be here.
yeah, for sure. And I'm sure people are wondering what's Comba doing on an Instagram live, because it's usually attending all these conferences and ABCD, but he created his time. So obviously, thank you so much, for having able to just create time for everyone to interact with you. I'm sure everyone can see you on every other banner these days. If you're not on Forbes, you are receiving an award. If you're not, if you're not having a good time with your kids, you're just having fun. And I think that's the most important thing. And for those of you who don't know who Komba is, he's going to introduce himself now, so that you guys get to know what we're talking about. It's a very exciting conversation, and I hope you guys can join in and just ask him as many questions as you can, because he's going to run away from us soon. So, Komba, introduce us you know to what we're dealing with today, and please, before you do that, say hi to everyone and let them know who you are.
Yes, Linda, thanks so much. First of all, I'd like to really appreciate you for creating this platform. I see you. I see everything that you do. I see you putting in the work. I see you getting uncomfortable and going out there and trying to make a difference, trying to be
Yeah,
present. So I see you. And so from one brother to the other, I just like to, give you your flowers and recognize the good work that you're doing. You're
thank
you're,
you.
you're stepping out of, mainstream finance and getting into uncharted territory. Today you're chatting to me about tech, you know.
Yeah,
So I'd like to encourage a whole lot more people out there to get uncomfortable and do different things. You never know where you might settle, so that's good. But whilst
yeah,
we're at before I introduce myself, I've seen so many familiar people on this chat. It's like 7 people online right now. So that is big, right? So I see Luke, I see Aaron, I see Abby, I see Firoza, I see
yeah,
so many people. It's so dope, guys. So thanks so much for
yeah,
joining. It's gonna be really short, crispy, and straight to the point.
yeah,
Um, and really we're here to chat about the upcoming ICT FinTech Festival. It is no surprise that I'll be at the beck and call of something like this because that's the industry that I work in and the industry that I'm so passionate about. Okay, so I have an ICT background. I studied at the University of Greenwich, where I obtained my UK degree, and I got into mainstream IT soon after I graduated. That was maybe what? I'm about to expose my age, but 13 years ago. 13 years ago, I got into mainstream IT. I started working for MTN almost straight from school. I think in between that, I worked at a firm, but it wasn't for too long. I got into MTN and I interned in the organization. So started all the way from the bottom. And I had a passion for financial services, but ICT at the same time. And I was privileged enough to work in an organization that really enabled me to stretch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really make the narrative my own. And so I always encourage people out there that when you're looking for work, right? Work is hard to find. So sometimes we settle for stuff that we don't even necessarily like, just because we're trying to make the buck, right? Or make ends meet. But you've got to make sure you work where you're celebrated. You've got to make sure that you work in an environment that really allows you to achieve your dreams, because life is short and we spend too much time in work environments. And if you don't work and place yourself in an environment that celebrates you, that helps you be the person that you want to be, it gets toxic and you're not going to add value, right? So it's like a mismatch. It's like a relationship that is toxic, basically. So I was lucky enough early on in my career to work in an environment like that. And I was very deliberate also to, first of all, add value in that environment and then start to sort of pave the way into where I really wanted to be. So I moved from the back office, the IT guy who used to fix computers. Yeah, I used to fix computers. And went into mainstream commercial. I like the commercial narrative, not for any reason other than the fact that I got to understand how my customers were experiencing products and services. I understand how GSM products, fintech products were actually impacting lives. And so I pivoted. I moved from IT into business, and we'll discuss one day how I got there. But as I managed to become the managing director for MTN Mobile Money. We got there somehow, persistence. And all the other cliche stuff that gets you there got me there.
Yeah, yeah. And so for everyone who's just listening, if you ever want to know how someone works their way up, you have to listen to Komba's story. And him being an inspiration to a lot of young people, everyone who's watching. Obviously, I think everyone has interacted with him on a personal level, on a business level, on a regional level as well, because obviously we have people from South Africa who may watch this. I've seen a few of my friends who are in Botswana and South Africa. He is the definition, right?
Yeah.
It's a definition of what African stories are, of building your way up and then obviously having an impact in society. So coming back to why we're here, next week on the 22nd and 23rd of September, we're having Zambia is having its first ICT Expo and FinTech Festival. Now, this is a game changer for a lot of people in the community because we have seen the evolution of tech, right? And we know what finance is, but we don't know how to have a conversation where both of them are coexisting. And obviously the evolution of economics, the evolution of finance, the evolution of technology, a lot of people are going to, they'll be forced almost to get into this because they have no other option. The world is changing, right? And you're managing director for that department, which is financial technology. And if you're watching this for the first time and you've wondered what this is all about, FinTech is basically the integration of technology into user-friendly models as well as customer delivery systems. So it is something that everyone needs to get into. And if you've ever wondered why banking, for example, because I'm from the banking sector, is having issues right now, it's because FinTech is having an issue with upgrading their systems into the banking system, which is something that we're going to get into. But coming back to the festival, Komba, obviously you are, if not the trailblazer, you are the brand ambassador or the speaker there. So what role are you playing in this fintech festival, and why do you think it's an important feat in the Zambian, perspective?
Yeah, no, look, first of all, I was very impressed with your definition of fintech. Just keep on, bringing out these nuggets. So well done.
Yeah,
Also, we have 91 people on this live. This is a good platform. I should have come here earlier. Thanks for joining, guys. Look,
yeah,
I want to simplify the discussion. If you run a business, if you work for an organization and you don't digitize, you're gonna die. You know,
mm,
you are preparing for the end. Whatever business you're in, look for opportunities to automate. What that does is that it opens you up to a whole new world of opportunities, right? So, say for example, um, you sell tomatoes right outside your house, right? You're really depending on the footfall that's going to walk past your house to be able to sell that tomato, right? But if you took a picture of those tomatoes and you uploaded it online and then you say you sell tomatoes, automatically you've got, at least in Zambia, right, where the mobile phone penetration is sitting at about 16 million odd people, you've got an opportunity to sell to 16 million instantly, right? Just by
yeah,
taking advertising online, right? So
mhm,
so much vast opportunity that we have that we need to come together to be able to create this digital ecosystem for ourselves.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of youth and SME participate in the FinTech Festival. To be able to understand from where you're sitting, how do you really participate in the digital era?
yeah,
How do you start to automate your business? How do you start to create apps for your business? And how do you
yeah,
start to online? Most people are paying you today via mobile money. So you'd be like, oh yeah, nitumine kwa kaka e-wallet or tumaku mobile money, tumaku Airtel
mm,
money, and type of thing.
yeah,
But that is not necessarily structured because what you are missing is the insights and the customer data. Every time someone visits your app, every time someone visits your website, you're collecting customer data and customer behavior on what they're actually clicking on. I had
yeah,
which is actually reality. A month ago, a couple of friends of mine were discussing that this internet is going to creep me out. I'll be
yeah,
on my phone discussing a particular product, right? Discussing iPhones with my mate. And suddenly I
yeah,
go to Facebook and my Instagram. I'm scrolling and there's an iPhone there being advertised. Was someone overhearing my conversation or what in the
yeah,
God is that, right? But at the end of the day, that's the digital edge. And that's the data that you're missing out on. That every traffic that you get to your platform, there is data that is being recorded that you are supposed to then benefit from if really you're going to be part of the digital edge. So it's solutions like that that people need access to. You're running a business, you need access to finance, right? So a business is not going to
yeah,
run it. You need access to loans to be able to finance your business, to get your profit, and then pay back and grow your business as you go. Those are
yeah,
the options that we want to talk about. So it's going to be a coming together of corporate, whether you're in ICT, you're in banking, you're in FMCG, you're an SME. How do you get access to funding? How do you attract funding? How do you sustain funding? What areas in Zambia specifically should you be investing in? How do you multiply your money? So it's going to be a whole
yeah,
host of discussions, but all centered around automation.
yeah. Wow. I mean, that is it, it goes without saying that obviously you're an expert in this field. And I think one of the questions that a lot of people are asking when they saw the ad go up for the festival is why now? So now that you've given context to what, the festival entails, but why now? Why wasn't this done 2 years ago? Why wasn't this done yesterday? Why do you think this is the time that people now are going to almost be oriented into this type of, information and knowledge base society, because it's important, like you've said. So is there a specific reason as to why you felt and came together with different stakeholders and different, obviously, brand ambassadors to say, guys, let's push this agenda and let's see how it grows the community?
Yeah, look, the timing was right.
Yeah,
If just 6 months ago we're not ready for the conversations that we're having now around tech, especially interoperability. We sat in silos and environments where the telcos kept each and every one of their environments to themselves. The bank did not want to operate with the telcos. The FMCGs did not want to automate. I still want to accept cash. But now we're in an environment where 2 years ago, the central bank were driving an NFS agenda, which is the National Financial Switch, right? That's why now you're able to seamlessly move money from your mobile phone to your bank account, and from your bank account to your mobile phone. You can deposit on a Kazang machine, you can withdraw from a 543 machine. You can walk into a store and the same agent will be able to deposit in an Airtel line, MTN, Zamtel, Zanaco, FNB, name them. Banks now have gone agency banking. So there's so much conversation around interoperability and how do we create value for the average Zambian, right? From wherever you are, you should be able to withdraw and deposit a payment. You should be able to digitize your business. You should be able at the click of a button, all right? Place an order. Someone should be able to pick it up, deliver it to you, and then hold that money in suspense. And at the point of delivery, then, on confirmation of receipt, you then, receive your payment or receive your good and so on and so forth. Similar to the way it works with PayPal. So a lot of conversations that obviously post-COVID, we've been able to leapfrog a lot of the things that we thought maybe we're going to achieve in 5 to 10 years, we've achieved already. It's really stemming from the fact that, the digital edge is ready now. So there's a lot of conversations that we're ready for now, and it's time to act, it's time to implement. And I was speaking at this ACCA conference, and one of the things that I told the accountants, right, because accountants like to give rules on how you spend your money, how you should not spend your money. I'm like, guys, just get uncomfortable. Get out there and get things going. Your things is Lusaka, Ndola, Kitwe, Livingstone, along the line of rail. No, you want to make money, you want opportunities, you need to get uncomfortable, you need to go to the outskirts. You've got to, what is happening in Samfia, Ichelenge, Mansa, what is happening in Kalumbila? What are the opportunities in those far-flung areas that you can do or participate in to grow your business? The city where you guys are operating is saturated, and most of the things that you're listening to here, even the guys that are here, most of the things you're going to hear from me, you probably know already, right? But what are you doing with the information that you get? The story of an average Zambian is, I'm going to leave my village, right, when I come of age. I'm going to go to the city, right? I'm going to make something out of myself, and I'm going to go back and develop the village where I came from, right? And there are people who are financially and digitally excluded, and you want opportunities, you want to grow your business, you want greenfield areas, put on some t-shirt and jeans and get it going there.
Yeah. Wow. So obviously, thank you so much for elaborating on that. So for a lot of you who are not familiar with FinScope, so FinScope is basically it's an information hub or a document. It could be a presentation, it could be anything. So FinScope detailed that in 2020, bank use reduced from 24% to 20%, and then in that same year, digital finance grew from 14% to 59%. So obviously now the question around Africa about what fintech is having or the impact that fintech is having in the region, how would you say fintech is growing generally in Zambia? Because we have about 25 fintech companies, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, or they've increased by one, I have no idea, but around that figure. They're not so many, but they're many at the same time. So what would you say is the value that fintech is adding to the community? Because obviously convincing people to come to the festival is one thing, but them walking away with an understanding where wherever they go in their business, in their school, in their homes, they're able to integrate all these teachings and make their lives easier. So what would you say, or what are some of the pointers that you could say, okay, you know what, guys, this is a real thing. And in as much as I am, representing a certain brand or I'm, advancing this type of knowledge, what contribution do you think it's having in the community at large?
So I'll answer that in a minute, Mlenga. Initially, I see like people online and comments that are coming through and so on and so forth. I can no longer see that from where I'm seated. So in case there's something that's done, you have to point it out. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
All right. Because I really want to keep in touch with our people. So if there's anything, I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see live your comments.
Yeah.
Anywho, look, the fintech industry, this whole mobile money blowing up. Okay. give you an idea, and I'll start from the whole African landscape. The mobile money industry is like $1 trillion industry worldwide. 70% of it is in Africa. So you're talking about 700 billion worth of transactions, $700 billion sitting just in Africa. And why is it so in Africa? Because of our rural to urban divide, right? So fintech and mobile money thrive when you've got a very big divide between rural to urban, and then transactions are moving in that narrative, right? Now, when you speak about Zambia alone, and based on the FinScope survey that you're referring to now, from Jan to June of this year, so first half, we moved about $50 billion in 50 billion kwacha in transaction.
Wow.
Yeah, within our ecosystem. We could do, even if we maintain the same pace for the latter part of the year and did about 100 to 120 billion, that's 120 billion kwacha worth of transactions that you could be tapping in if you were online. Do you understand? Right? And then when we start talking those type of transactions, then we know the true value of our economy, right? So the enemy is cash. Every time you're dealing with cash, it's a statistic or information that you're just letting go on paper. When these transactions start to come online, then, and let me break it down for the common man, right? When you perform any transaction online, that adds to your credit score. All right. So if you want to walk into a bank or into a fintech to go and ask for funding or a loan, they're going to ask what your credit is, and your credit being what kind of transactions are you doing? Are you paid up on your loans? Are you buying airtime? And so on and so forth. Similar to what the Credit Reference Bureau does, but on its own, it's a little bit legacy because we're doing transactions all the time. So when I'm going to get a loan, I must be considered for the amount of data I spend, the amount of the amount of online transactions, how many times am I buying goods and services and so on and so forth. All of that adds to your credit. That's why in America or the Western world, you're able to get so much access to fund, right? Because there's so much information online about people. Now, the moment you cash, everything is just so manual. So you're not able to really establish what people's buying behavior is and therefore turn that into information for their credit to be able to extend funding to them. And that's why we all need to go digital. That's why this whole digital conversation is so fundamental, because then we get information on people and we're able to extend. So the mobile platform, for example, in MTN, you get collateral-free loans, right? So people are able to borrow up to 10,000 kwacha, collateral-free. We don't get nothing. So no loan shark. Nobody's coming for your car or your wife or nothing, okay, as a loan shark. We know. We're just giving this cash and pay in a week, a month, 3 months. You're going to structure how your payment plan is going to come, but no collateral. Why? Because based on all the usage on your phone, all the airtime you use, we're able to form a pattern of how much we can extend to you instantly. No application, nothing, we'll be able to get. But imagine if everybody was able to do that, and you're able to walk into a bank, into a telco, go to a loan shark, and you're able to press a button, get your information, and extend that credit to you for you to grow that business. Those are the conversations that we're looking forward to having next week, and see how, as an industry, we can support SMEs, entrepreneurs, and citizens alike. Right.
Yeah. So for everyone who's tuned in for the first time, I will share a couple of links in the next coming few days of how you can register for the upcoming ICT Expo and FinTech Festival next week. It's on the 22nd and 23rd of September. This is a game changer for a lot of people. But before we go into the last two questions, because obviously you have to dash off, he's a busy man. So, we are trying to milk as much time as we can from him. So there's a question here saying, how far is Zambia from accepting crypto and digital assets such as NFTs in the fintech industry? I don't know if you can see the pinned comment.
See anything, but I'm relying on you. So I heard that question. We're not far. I think these discussions are already happening. I always get excited when people start talking about crypto, and so on and so forth. It means, minds are enthusiastic. You know, everybody now will start investing in things like Bitcoin and so on and so forth. So that's great. So the transactions are already happening in our country. Those transactions are borderless, right? The only thing that we're trying to get our hands around is the regulation around it. You know, so we're getting a lot of consultative papers from the central bank in terms of how do we regulate it and make sure that people don't get exposed, because we've heard horror stories, you know, across the pond of some of these things, right? So we just have to make sure that we work in a regulated environment. Our conversation right now as Zambia is maybe 5 years away from where people are actively using crypto, is really to just
Yeah.
get for transacting. So you need to get off the platform. All right.
Yeah.
So financing transactions are only happening to 50% of your population. There's another 50% of people who are just purely excluded, you know.
Mm.
And so that is where a lot of our focus is right now. But we're
Yeah.
still wrapping our head around how do we regulate, because these transactions, whether we like it or not, they happen.
Yeah. So I have Omid who's asked the question, and Omid obviously he's a father, he's a husband, and he's a businessman. He's he's a professional, and he's someone who really looks at all these frameworks and likes to digest info. So he's asked a question that I think even I wanted to touch on a little bit, because obviously the conversation around finance and fintech is something that a lot of people, most of us in the offices, we take advantage of the fact that we're exposed to this information. It's a pool of info, but then there's a tendency for us to forget those who are in areas that are very far away from Lusaka, because Lusaka is very busy. So even I fall into that trap sometimes where I assume the next person understands what I'm talking about. But then he's asked a very important question, which I was also going to talk about later on, about how we sensitize people and how we educate them, because we have seen a lot of money exports that are flooding the internet these days, which I think is good. I think Zambia is having this influx of different types of experts, whether it's football, music, and finance, and ABCD. But more specifically, how are we reaching these people in rural areas? So Omid is asking, how do we take this in rural areas? I'm based in Solwezi, so I don't know if you have a short answer for him, Komba.
Yeah. And he's part of the answer, you know.
Mm.
This question came up even at the ACCA forum today. The thing is that we've got to get on the ground, all right? And we've got to have these conversations. So you always see me putting up something, going somewhere, doing something, and so on and so forth. The truth is, I'm impatient, you know, to get our Zambians sensitized around digital and financial services. You've got
Yeah.
to get on the ground. You know, every time we get into these environments, I'll tell you something that I saw somewhere in between Choma, a situation where transaction volumes and transaction values that would circulate in these farm areas, these outskirts, these areas where people are doing farmer input supply programs and so on and so forth. These guys are dealing with cash, bulks and bulks of cash. So they're not poor. Hey, they make money.
Mm.
They grow their input, they sell them to large scale farmers, and they get paid. But unfortunately, they get paid in cash. They have got no savings culture. They've got no investment culture, zero. And they don't know what they don't know. So we are on the ground to teach them. From the 1st of October, which is in 2 weeks, to the 31st of December, my team and I are going on the ground. We're going to
Mm.
do things like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every you know, you were sharing creatives on social media, whatever, going on radio, talking to people about financial inclusion, but it's not enough. We're preaching to people who are already converted. There's a very big population out there that is extremely digitally and financially excluded. So we're going to fold our sleeves and we're going to get on the ground and we're going to push education. That's where the focus is. So really, the challenge is to most Zambians and Zambian organizations is to get on the ground and drive this education. There's another program that I'm trying to embark on, which is a student program. The team came up with this brilliant idea and we've enforced it, where we're going to be able to drive the youth as our ambassadors in a lot of these homes, institutions, and so on and so forth. Because in most homes, you now know that the digital ambassadors are the youth, right? So folks will make any decision which internet provider to use or how to go digital. If the kid comes and says, you know what, this is the provider we're using, this is technology we're using, the parents are going to go. So they're the biggest ambassadors and they're the high value customers of tomorrow. So you catch them young.
Yeah.
And then I also want to bring up another subject. I'm going to digress a little bit, okay? Where there's a need for government to also support this narrative, right? And I always, any opportunity I get, I challenge the government a little bit to stretch, right? Imploring taxes and VAT and all of those things on startups, entrepreneurs, and SMEs sometimes from the beginning can be harsh. You find that the reason why most people don't want to go digital and formalize their businesses is because, you know, from day one, they're making you pay those taxes and VAT. You're not even started. You haven't yet even failed. You know what I mean? Because nobody gets it right the first time. You're going to try. It's going to fail. Maybe the third time, fourth time, you're going to get it right, then you scale, right? But from the little investment that you're getting in with, you have to pay that tax. So how do you give startups and entrepreneurs and SMEs tax holidays, you know, where they're given the opportunity to scale their business, and when they break even and their business is profitable, at that point, then you can start to get, right? So there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that we have to have, a lot of narratives that we push. I'm glad that the regulator, the government are all going to be around next week when we have the discussions. Hopefully that it can come back as value creation for all Zambians.
Okay. Yeah, and there's another quick question here, and I'm really going to make sure that everyone gets the full experience here because it's very rare to have this type of audience. So, so this one is saying, Komba, hi, have you made any strides in engaging transporters in terms of doing away with cash and instead of using mobile money transactions? I repeat that. Have you made any strides in engaging transporters in terms of doing away with cash and instead use mobile money transactions?
Yeah, so I'm sure when you refer to transporters, you're talking about bus drivers, right? So this is local transport systems, right? And if that's the question, then yes, of course. So, I mean, we're trying hard. Most of the bus drivers now have got a mobile money option. I get on one very soon to just see how that works before I speak from no context. But we have been driving that message home quite a bit. These buses work in cartels, so there's a lot of politics around them. I'll call it as it is. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't like digital financial transactions because sometimes it doesn't necessarily allow them to do certain things. I'll not say much, but you know where I'm going. The thing about digital financial transactions, digital payments, is that the transaction and the payment is just going to be transparent, and the owner of the bus can track it from wherever he is. But that's why I encourage the actual owners to invest in this, because then your business is safe. Then at the point of collection, you will know that you'll be taking all your takings for the bus. There's no way the guy will come and say, no, Kokashin, Sinazule bus or Sinakwanise. No, no, no. As the guys are getting on the bus, they are tagging in, so you know how many people got on your bus, you know how many people paid, and then you know what to collect and so on and so forth. So yes, we have solutions for transport systems. To the extent that they are adopted is sometimes shaky, but I think the conversations are getting better and better as we keep on those doors. So you'll find that in certain buses, right at the top, there will be an option for Momo Pay or Pay via Momo, and we're there making sure that we can support the guys who are willing to collect via mobile money.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Komba. And obviously, we are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. For everyone who's tuned in for the first time, this was an impromptu special edition with Komba Malukutila, who is Managing Director FinTech at MTN. And next week, we're having our first ICT Expo and FinTech Festival. So I hope everyone is excited about this. I'm excited about it because, you know, I am big on the evolution of a lot of things in society. I am very, very, very principled to a point where I do not like redundant structures. For me, I love to see everything integrating. Everything should be integrated into the other. When people speak of the ecosystem, or people speak of, you know, the different sectors of society. I'm a fundamental believer that everything is connected, right? So you have the governments, you have the institutions, you have the corporate companies, you have the tech companies. All these things need to work in harmony. And the festival is a great example of how all these things, you know, all these conversations will come together. So if you're going to come next week, please come with those questions, because obviously we don't have a lot of time, you know, to exhaust each and every other framework. But, you know, it's a very important conversation that we need. And just to shed a light, a bit of depth, because obviously Komba brought his A game, right? So a bit of depth on what's happening on a global scale. So I'm sure a lot of you had noticed that, you know, in the last few months, a few years, a lot of banks were, you know, they were integrated in a different way, where we noticed the closure of certain branches, you know, globally and both locally as well. And from an African perspective, we saw banks saying, okay, you know what, we don't need that branch. We don't need that branch. And we saw a lot of backlash with that in society, because then everyone was like, oh, but where are the people going to get jobs? And 91,100 people lost their jobs, right? Just in the last few years. And a lot of people obviously will start to say, but where is the future of banking, or where is the future of tech? Where do they come together? That's what we're going to be talking about at the Expo. And one other important factor that we don't realize is happening is all of us are actually part of fintech. We're all part of the financial ecosystem. Because for you, these days you don't even need to call customer care line, only if you want to. These days we have social media experts, social media managers who have a way of just telling you how you can operate your accounts. All that is tech, right? And the threat, obviously, from a, you know, a financial perspective or in the banking, you know, region, is that everyone is saying, okay, so is traditional banking being done away with? Not really. It's just evolving. And if we have people like Komba and a few other drivers in the seats who can, you know, push this narrative, we're going to have a society that's very educated on this, and they'll start to evolve with everyone. For me, when you speak of banking, for example, for me it's one word or two words: customer service. And fintech is the driver force of customer service. I do not want to spend 2 hours standing in a queue over something that can be handled in 1 minute, right? So if you are having any doubts or any reservations over this conversation, just think of it as a way of making your life easier, from being a business owner, from being a father, a mother, a sister, a brother. It's the evolution of society. And next week is the beginning of those conversations. If you look at every other successful country from an African perspective, a global perspective, and now locally, every other revolution that started of people who changed society was a conversation. And it's exactly what we're doing now. But next week, you have an in-depth look and, you know, and context of where we are as Zambians, you know, on this very issue. More depth. Rwanda recently, they formulated what we call ESAB. So ESAB is basically users and different people in society buying securities, you know, and all these other financial instruments using their mobile phones. But we're not there yet as Zambians, right? And I see a lot of people asking me questions: when are we going to start transacting over our phones? We want to invest in government securities. We want to do ABCD. So for us to get to that level where it's a functioning system, these are the conversations that we need to engage with one another. Whether you're from the banking sector, the health sector, we all need to come together, right? So I'm going to ask Komba if he has any questions for me, but even more so, I think people have stopped asking questions, meaning they've gotten a little bit of what we'll go. So we're not going to exhaust everything, because then next week we'll have noise. So, you know, in a wrapping up, we'll be wrapping up, but Komba, do you have any questions or any shout outs or any other things that people should be expecting next week that you haven't touched on?
No, really. Thanks. Like I said, this was gonna be short and sweet. We'd keep it to the point.
Yeah.
And one more right before. But it's really just to appreciate you, Mulenga, for creating the platform for these type of conversations. I think we need to have more of these conversations.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, well done. And I will see to it that we can have another session that gets into a little bit more detail soon. But
Yeah.
really that people could come online. Please drop me a DM, a message online if you need to find out anything specific. Maybe you're a little shy to ask here, and you want to just chat on a one-to-one. I will get back and help you, support you within the context of this conversation the best that I can. But me or Mlenga up, and if there is anything specifically in my field you want to know, I'll be more than happy to support. I appreciate the love on this platform. Just really, really grateful to all of you. And we see you for even coming online here. It means you're interested in forging ahead. So we're together. And I look forward to seeing those that are going to make it to the FinTech Festival next week.
Thank you so much, everyone. And quick fun fact: I saw one of the comments going down there. They were saying, "How does this relate to your field?" Well, I'm in treasury and financial markets. So treasury and financial markets is tech. I'm surrounded by tech. For you to transact foreign exchange numbers and all these ABCDs, it's all fintech, right? So even from a banking perspective, it's a relevant discussion. And if you have any questions, like he said, if you want to get into this field, you want an intersecting conversation where you can grow, please feel free to reach out to both of us and other people, obviously, that we're connected to. So we'll be leaving now. And thank you so much for tuning in. And Komba, I hope you'll be available for a second session. Obviously, probably a wind down session. I think after the Expo, we should have another one where we just probably run down through everything that happened. So please get your tickets. Komba is speaking. I'll be moderating one of the sessions as well. So let's see you there, guys. Let's see you there. Let's chant it on. Like I said, conversations bring change. So see you there. Komba, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Peace.